So I can start. My name is Chance Williford. I'm the city administrator for the little city of Paradise, Texas, out in Wise County. It only has about 700 people, and so I may be the smallest one here. I've been there for coming up on two years now.
Okay, why don't we go from west to east? You go next.
That'll work. Gabe Ream. I have been in Saginaw, which is just north of the Fort Worth Stockyards, for a little over 8 years.
I think Drew would be next.
I am. I'm a new subscriber to Google Meet. I just purchased that about 5 minutes ago. Thank you, Spencer. And I am the town manager of the town of North Lake. I've been local government 31 years. I've been at North Lake for 18 years. And then I'm just up the road 156 from Gabe there.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Stevens. I'm the city manager for the city of Highland Village. Highland Village is about 16,500 people. I've been city manager here for just over 5 years. Years of experience in local government, too many to count. I'm kind of right there with Drew, about 34, 35 years.
Good afternoon. My name is Mario Canizares. I'm the town manager for Prosper. Tomorrow will be my 3rd year anniversary. Prosper is just shy of 50,000 residents. And next month, I'll have 30 years in local government. Long time.
Great. Oh, that's nice. Well, that's great to hear from everyone, honestly. So just to start off with a more easier topic, just simpler, that we all would love to know. What first drew each one of you onto local government rather than another career path?
I'll take that, and then we'll go the opposite way. How's that? And again, I'm just spitballing here. No, for me, it was fairly early on that I wanted to be in local government. Back in college, I was an undecided major early on, my freshman and sophomore year. I had an intent to go to law school, but what I didn't know is what undergraduate degree plan I needed to choose to do so: history, government, poli-sci, whatever, business. And so I really was undecided, so I just had taken a bunch of classes. And it was actually a professor of mine that actually still teaching where I went to undergrad, who encouraged me to look at public administration. I'd taken an intro class of his, and he encouraged me to look at public administration. Had no idea what that was. He explained a little bit, actually introduced me with a local manager just a few miles down the road. And the man took me to lunch, and from there I was hooked, and I knew that I wanted to do what he was doing. And that was back in 1993, so a long time ago. And so it was early on for me.
Well, for me, I was always interested in politics. In fact, I was a political science major undergrad at the University of North Texas. Like Mario, I thought about law school. I thought that was the right path, and I wanted to get into politics. Fortunately, I got off that path because I would hate to be in partisan politics today. But I was in student government at the University of North Texas, and I got elected as president. And I was finishing up my bachelor's degree, so I would have to be in grad school. And I started looking at different programs, and public administration was the closest one to really what appealed to me. And the first class I took was with Dr. Bland, and I was hooked. And at that point, I knew I found my career. So here I am 30 some odd years later, and still enjoying it, and glad I made that decision.
Man, our stories sound very similar. I was a poli-sci major, undergrad. I actually worked 4 different campaigns. I worked in the state legislature for a session, but my last 3 of the 4 campaigns lost, and I needed to regroup. I had enough hours from dawdling around at A&M to get a teaching certificate, and I taught math and government for a couple of years to middle schoolers. And while I was down in the legislature, I toured the LBJ School of Public Policy, and I realized in politics, if you don't have money, or you don't have friends that have money, or you have people that are willing to give you money, you can't be in politics. And so I remember that time I was at the LBJ School of Public Policy. I applied. I don't know, I guess because I went to A&M, they didn't accept me. So I like I said, I taught for a couple of years. And then I just went up to North Texas and visited Dr. Bland, and he was able to cobble together my horrible GPA and a pretty decent GRE, and he let me squeeze in. So that's how I ended up in local government. I wanted to affect the world. I thought it would be through politics. I thought it would be through policy, but I'm happy I landed here because I can see the impact. We're the government that's closest to the people. We have projects that are tangible that people see, they use, they drive on, they turn on the faucet. So it's very rewarding career, and I'm glad I stumbled on this. So politics and eighth graders, I am perfectly suited to run a council meeting.
I guess I can go. Was raised in a really rural area on a farm. Have a lot of good farm stories if you want to hear some offline. My initial idea was I always liked math, kind of two things. I've been a lifelong reader, and once upon a time, not now, I like math and had some desire to proceed. So I thought I would be a math teacher and have summers off and farm and raise livestock and do things that I had grown up doing and enjoyed. So went to school. The semester before I was set to do my student teaching, I was placed for observation hours in a second grade classroom. Why, I don't know. I wanted to be in like high school and teach algebra and calculus and things of that nature. And I tell people kind of jokingly, but I lost my will to live. The little girls just shredded me. They beat me down emotionally and slightly physically. Get a little physical, but you know, Mr. Gabe, you're a loser. Why are you not married? Why don't you have a nice car? And I just, you know, we weren't talking about math, which is what I kind of liked. And I don't know. I just had a very strong feeling, I can't really explain it, that this was not going to work out. And I'm sort of grateful for that. It's, you know, no one should be doing something they don't enjoy or halfway enjoy. So, dairy farmer, one of my neighbors I worked for was friends with the mayor in our town where I went to high school. It's kind of weird. We were farm ranch people. I went to school there, but it's not like, you know, those are city people. It's a different class of people than us, you know, Hicks and the sticks, I guess. So he said, hey, what about this city management gig? And I knew nothing about city management. At the time, the city manager of the town where I was raised, Ionia, Michigan, was a man named Tom Wazorek, who now works for ICMA in public safety consulting. So just on a whim, I had a friend that I worked in the cattle industry with, buying and selling cattle and hauling cattle in Southeast Oklahoma. I thought, you know what? Denton, Texas sounds like a nice place. My friend, who I haven't talked to in years, said, yeah, it's not bad. It's an hour away. And the rest is history.
Well, I grew up in a military family and moved around a lot. I was born in Abilene, but we never lived in Texas. I graduated high school out of North Carolina and went to A&M. I got my undergrad at A&M. And then I joined the Marines. And I was in the Marines as an officer from 2013 to 2020. And when you're an officer in the Marine Corps, you don't get to choose what your job is. They give you a job. And I was very unlucky. and they gave me a job called a adjutant manpower officer, which is the junior staff officer in any unit. And so while the way that these groups would work, it's called a battalion, the way these battalions would work is all the officers would go and do cool stuff, and they leave all the paperwork for me. It was just miserable, let me tell you, because I joined the military to fight wars and not to do personnel paperwork and prosecute misbehaviors. And so I did that for 7 years and was just miserable. And no one likes you, no one respects you. Just your career goes nowhere. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm learning all these management skills and no one respects me for it. Where can I go where I can continue to be in public service, but use all these skills that I've acquired, and maybe people will give you some respect. And my family lives in Abilene. I went to Abilene and just got a wild hair. I don't know how I heard about it, but I reached out to the city manager at Abilene, who at the time was Bob Hanna. And Bob Hanna just happened to have been a prior Marine, and he was willing to meet with me, and he let me know that UNT is the school that you go to become a city manager. And so I applied to UNT 2 full years before I got out of the military, and they deferred my enrollment for 2 years while I made the final decision: am I going to resign my commission? And my wife and I had the talk and said, hey, this isn't working. So we pulled the cord, got out of the Marines, went to UNT, started working with Drew at Northlake, held 4 titles with Drew in about 4 years, and took this opportunity to go and work at Paradise when it came up, and have been enjoying it to death, although there are good days and bad.
Hey, Chance, did you get that respect you were looking for? I haven't found any.
Well, you know what? I got treated so badly. It's, you know who's good at treating people badly? Marines. And so this has been a real step up. And that's
No, thank you. Go on, my bad about that. Oh, well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but thank you all for sharing that. Honestly, to follow up with just hearing everyone's experiences, I guess I am very curious. Was there a moment where the job became more than a job instead of feeling like a responsibility to a community? Just basing it off all the answers that y'all shared with us, honestly.
Well, I think people are motivated by different things. And so those are, with any time in the program, will have done some reading about public service motivation. And that's all well and good. And there are people who just want to serve the public and are willing to accept the downsides of a public employment. My perspective is different because I come from a military background, and I want to be the executive. I want command. I want to be the one who makes the decisions and causes things to happen. And so the public service aspect of it, the only true ability you have to get to that point is to have other people trust in you and to earn their trust. And so that's what motivated me, and what motivates me to live up to the station of it.
Yeah, I just kind of echo a little bit of that. For me, you asked about when does the job become more than a job. I can't speak for the other gentlemen on the call, but I would assume they're in the same boat. The job is kind of a 24/7 job, and I don't shy away from that. I mean, obviously, I've got to sleep, got to eat, spend time with family, but we're always connected via phone. I can delegate responsibilities to my assistant managers to a point, but ultimately I'm fully responsible for what happens or doesn't happen. And so occasionally, if I get a phone call or a text and I do respond, I do get the eye roll from my wife or my kids if they're around, about, you're taking another call. Yeah, I have to, and sometimes you have to sacrifice. I mean, I've moved away from my family and kids to take on positions because I felt like it was the right thing for me to do for my job. But you make it work. But that's just the nature of the business of what you're in. And again, life's full of choices, and I made the choice to go into that role. And so I knew what I was getting into. So for me not to expect that I'm going to be made available all the time, it's just probably kind of false hope, because I chose to be in this role and I accept the responsibility.
Yeah, Carlos, it's a great question. I think for me, I go back to my parents. My dad had a carpet cleaning company, and he wasn't just a carpet cleaner, but he was involved in some other associations. My mom was worked for Southwestern Bell Telephone, and she was union vice president. So I saw both of them doing more than what their regular job entailed, and I saw the satisfaction and joy they got out of it. So I think I was always just kind of driven that way. And then when I first did my internship, and then Mario and I were at the same place at different times, but I did my internship at the town of Addison. And Ron Whitehead was an amazing city manager and an amazing mentor. And I think just watching him, the way he interacted with staff, the way he interacted with council and citizens, it really kind of set that foundation for me that, it is more than just a job, but there's a lot of benefits to that and a lot of enjoyment to that. I've always tried to emulate that and carry that in my entire career.
Gabe, I'll go next so you can finish up and summarize. I guess it was gradual for me. I thought I would kind of be the hired gun, the professional that came in and fixed things and moved on to the next. And I just couldn't get out of North Lake. I tried for some of these jobs on the guys here on the screen. I tried for some of their positions, and I kept getting pushed back to North Lake. And I think another thing that happens is you hire all these people, you see all these projects come to fruition. It just kind of grows on you, and you just can't help but it becomes a calling. It becomes, like Mario said, it just becomes 24/7, and it's a good thing. Caring is important, but caring, takes a little bit of your heart every time. So it's a bittersweet relationship. We're dealing with a traffic. We rerouted traffic, and we upsetted mom's commute to drop their kids off at school, and it's been tough. But we're trying to keep my council in line and tell them this was the plan that you approved 5 years ago, and they're, what? We did what? So it's been an interesting journey, but yeah, it's been kind of a slow. It's kind of grown on me. I mean, I woke up one day and I'm like, wow, I'm really doing this, and I'm all in, and it's more than just a job.
I can't add much other than it's a nonstop cycle, and if that doesn't appeal to you, then you just might find something else. I find that although I failed as a teacher, that a lot of the job is teaching or explanation, walking through how things work, because you have to acknowledge and realize that your supervisors, the mayor and the city council, they're doing this on a volunteer basis because they care and they're interested, and it's not their everyday job. So, just like Drew was saying, he has destroyed lives in North Lake, which, let's be honest, that probably happens every day. If I'm honest, I'm probably gonna hop on the Facebook group and complain about him after this. But no, there's a lot of confusing things that, say this traffic issue. I'm sure there's a logical, rational way traffic was rerouted. This takes a lot of explanation, and it's sort of nonstop. We're talking about, and all of us could talk about specific projects. I saw a article this morning in Prosper about roundabouts. So we went through this. We built a couple roundabouts. Roundabouts, in my experience, is a real binary situation. You either love them or you hate them. Now, if a person can let the emotion subside, the traffic safety data, there's no rational basis why we shouldn't have roundabouts everywhere. I mean, they are far safer. But this is a thing that, you know, in the grocery store or at church or whatever, somebody's going to approach you about, and you just, I think it ultimately becomes a personality thing that you understand it's part of the job, and you just got to explain and help people through things. And it's just part of it.
Good.
Yeah,
My mayor had a
Oh, go ahead.
mayor had a battlefield conversion. He hates roundabouts, and all of a sudden, with his traffic problem, he loves them. So we're rushing to change from signals to roundabouts. So yeah, it's been amazing to see the change.
And we're trying to avoid putting in signals, roundabouts instead, you know, so it's, but going back to, not about roundabouts, but going back to that question, I think one thing I would like to add though too is, and I think my colleagues here would agree, is you are no good to your staff or you are no good to your elected officials if you don't take care of yourself. And it could be through exercise. Certainly I'm not going to condone heavy drinking and eating and smoking or any of those things, but again, that does happen. But if you don't take care of your health, your mental health, your physical health, your family life, again, not that you can't overcome it, but I've known good people because they didn't take care of themselves. It hurt them in the long run. You know, certainly they didn't die, but they went through illness, major medical calamities. And so again, it's kind of, if you ever flown a plane and the flight attendant, when they're going through their safety briefing, they say that when the air masks deploy, that you put your air mask, you put your mask on first before you help, you know, a minor or someone that needs help. Again, the premise is you can't help the minor if you're passed out, or the person that can't put it. You got to put it on yourself first, breathe in the air, and then help the person. So I just attribute it to, you got to take care of yourself. Delegate, decompress, get away from it. While we are 24/7, understand that there is a point in time that you just got to get away from it all and regroup and recharge, because again, you're no good to those that you're serving if you're not serving. So.
Great, thank you for adding on to that actually. So I want to get more into just challenges of these bigger town, small city administrations. So to start off, and anyone could answer this if would like, what challenge exists in your community or small city, big towns that people outside local governments rarely understand?
Okay, well, I'll chime in. Well, for us is we're growing. We've grown 50% in 5 years. We were a town of 30,000 in 2020, and in 2025 we're a community of 46,000. And our next census or update through the census will be probably just shy of 50. We've added, I think, 25% staff over the last 2.5 years. For us, it's really just changing from a small town to a medium-sized organization where we were used to one employee wearing multiple hats because that's what you had to do, to now trying to separate duties. And so we're a little clunky at times, and we haven't fully refined all of our processes because we're growing so much. And for us, it's just the nature of where we are in our evolution as an organization is we just have people, and again, they're great people, but because they've worked and prospered for so long and they've seen us grow, they're still sort of in that mode of, well, we're still a small town. We can't do it this way because, or I'm the only one that can do it. And that's not true. You know, we've added more people. And so we just don't have folks that have fully bought in yet on fully utilizing the resources that they have. We'll get there. It's just a work in progress. But for us, and even still as we're growing, there are things that we just don't have yet. We don't have certain amenities and programs and services that a lot of more established communities have, just because we just don't have the funds yet. Bond programs haven't been approved or whatnot, and so we're still in that growing phase. But we'll get there. It just takes time, and it's a learning curve for folks. They really want. I have to convince my council that we're no longer the town where you could just go to the post office and you know everybody. Now there are a lot of strangers that you just don't know, and while they understand it, they don't necessarily like it. But it's just, we're having to grow up. But I feel like we're going through the puberty phase of growing up, and we're still just awkward, voices squeaking, things are kind of growing out of place, and we're just not fully refined yet. It's kind of ugly. It's an ugly duckling right now.
Well, I'll add on that because I still have my acne scars from my puberty. The challenge is, as you grow, if say you grow 25%, you can't hire 25% of a person. Part-time doesn't always work, and you know, you can have contracts and consultants, but they're not down the hall, and they have multiple clients, so they don't always, you can't always grab their neck when you need them to do something. So that's a challenge. So you've got to ask your staff to stretch until you're ready to add that full position. And especially when you're really small, it's very granular, right? It was 12 people when I got here. And so multiple hats. Mario's reminded me of a story. I came in as the first administrator, and there was a town secretary, and I told her, unfortunately, my job is to take jobs from you because you were doing it all, and you can't do it anymore. So I've got to, so you can become truly a town secretary, not HR and not finance director and all that stuff. And another thing Mario said reminded me is, you know, we're next to Flower Mound, and Flower Mound, man, they do everything. They got parks and senior centers and trails, and it's just great. And somebody moves across the street and they realize they're in North Lake, and where's all my stuff? And we did an exercise, really, really brilliant. Previous mayor said, cost it all out. They want a rec center. How much you have to raise your taxes by? They want a library. So I was going through that, and I was in, here's a library, it's going to be 10 cents. Here's a rec center, it's going to be 15 cents. Here's a golf course, 20 cents. And one of my elderly council members, who was kind of half in, half out, paying attention, he's like, wait a minute, now our tax rate's going to be $1? What's going on? I said, no. This is what it could be. I don't want any of that. And I said, well, there you go. That's where we're at. So it was an interesting scenario building on that. But yeah, it's keeping your staff supported and asking them to stretch a little bit, and then just tamping down. I mean, if you truly want to be a low tax city, you can't do everything that your neighbors do.
You know, in Highland Village, even though we're a relatively young city, we were founded in 1963, but we're only 6.4 square miles. We have less than 70 acres remaining for development. So we're plateauing. We're at build out. And I think one of the difficult things for people to understand is when you're not growing, your revenues are going to plateau. You really have to be careful how you allocate those resources. And of course, none of us like taxes, but the difficulty is taxes pay for the services that you want. They even pay for police and fire, which people don't get sometimes. So we're going to be going through a lot of exercises in the next couple of years of possibly doing some cost cutting and really kind of make people understand, if you want to continue this service, this is what it's going to cost. And I know all of us here understand too, you know, the state legislature has put some parameters on us as far as the way we can raise our taxes. That's not keeping up with inflation, and all of us pay taxes as well. I don't like paying my taxes, but it's getting pretty difficult, and that's whether you're a growing city or a mature city like us. It's very difficult. So trying to explain those challenges to everybody is it's going to get difficult the next few years. So that's kind of where we are. We've definitely gone through the pimply phase, and now we're trying to take care of our bad back and our knees.
I might just add that, you know, projects take a long time and people grow impatient. If I were to try to grow a beard like Drew is sporting, it would take me a decade. Mario's, I could probably do it in 5 years, but it's tough to a military guy. He's clean shaven. All right. It's tough to remind our elected officials plus folks out in the community that, hey, we're working on this stuff. But we don't have the capacity to do it right now, or we can, or whatever the specific circumstance might be. I would say that it's a lot of fun. Like Drew had mentioned, he has very long tenure in Northlake. To see projects that have taken a lot of time, it's really rewarding if something's, took you 5 years to get there. So we built a library and a senior center as part of a bond program, and it's packed like all day, every day. And it makes me really happy. So while it was, had to work through the bond process, and my brother-in-law can build this for $5 million as opposed to 27 million, all the stuff, it was worth it at the end. So I would remind everybody that, play the long game and just stay the course.
I think that living or working in Wise County has really recalibrated my sense of what a small city is. The big city in Wise County is Decatur, and it has 10,000 people. And, if you're in Wise County, people talk about Decatur as though it were Fort Worth. People don't understand the scale of difference. And living in the Metroplex, living within the gravitational pull of Dallas-Fort Worth, shapes our perceptions of everything. But most of the cities in Texas are not in North Texas. And so I think that that's something that we need to keep in mind. When it comes to things that the public doesn't understand about our powers and restrictions, I have kind of an interesting dichotomy where the public thinks I'm very powerful and feel threatened by me. And the council thinks they're very weak and have difficulty making assertive policy. And so it's a balancing act for me where a lot of times I'll have a lot of opposition from the public saying that we're going to become just like Fort Worth. No, we have 700 people. We're not going to become like Fort Worth. But then the flip side, well, this is for the council direction. This is the way it's always been done, and there are no solutions to our intractable problems like water. Right? No, sir, there are solutions to these problems. You tell me to go and solve the problem, and I'll do my best to do it. But you have to tell me. And so I get the misunderstandings from both sides.
Great, actually. So throughout everyone's answer, I would hear something about like, oh, there's something growth surrounding area. So just to get a little further with everyone on that, how has regional growth pressure affected decision making in your community then?
Got me hired. I'm the first ever city administrator for Paradise, and they didn't want one, didn't feel like they needed one until the pressures of population growth convinced them. And our big thing is water. People are moving to Wise County and depleting the aquifer, and there's not enough surface water to feed the population growth. And so I think that's probably something that you'd hear from every corner of Texas.
My challenge is transportation, road system. We got caught in the middle, changing horses in the middle of the stream when TxDOT changed their funding mechanism and really stopped funding for a good 2 years. And there's a big fight with politicians and donors to repurpose all that money that was going to go to North Texas to Midland, Odessa area. And so we are supporting the regional traffic on our local roads because the state, who is typically responsible for regional mobility, has not. So, and this is something that Prosper, all these towns faced at one point. You're always waiting to catch up, and we're waiting probably doubly long because we got caught in this horrible maelstrom of fighting over funding, and state has great reserves, but they've decided to squeeze TxDOT of all funding, and they've stopped. The governor doesn't like toll roads, so he stopped management lanes. So we just don't manage lanes, so we just don't have any help coming. And we're trying to build our system to match the state system, but half our traffic is coming from points north and west to our system, avoiding the undersized TxDOT facilities and using ours. And it's and there's growth. We have growth. We've caused it, but we have growth north and west of us that are exacerbating the problem. So it's and if your neighbors aren't part of the solution, they're just dumping their problem on you. And so we're just caught between a rock and a hard place in all this growth.
Yeah, we're in the same boat here in Prosper. We're surrounded by Frisco, McKinney, Little Elm, and Salina. Salina is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. And so while all those cities have rules and planning ordinances in place, we've got other areas that are not within city limits. They are in the unincorporated areas of Denton County. And so that's unfettered growth. And so as a result, it's cheaper to live in the county because of just fewer restrictions to construct developments, housing developments. And so we're similar to Drew. We are caught with always being behind the 8 ball when it comes to infrastructure improvements, whether it's roadways, traffic signals, now roundabouts, water sewer projects. And so it's really just keeping up with the growth has been our issue. And we do work together with our neighboring communities, but it's very difficult when the county just doesn't engage. I mean, we have good relationships with Denton County, but they just don't engage because they don't regulate really any of the growth. They just let it go. And they have no real plans outside of what they get monies from TxDOT on roads to really expand the roadway network for those developments. So we're just stuck.
Dave, you want to go next? You want me to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know that I have much to add other than what's already been mentioned.
You don't have any growth. You can't answer this question. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. You know, of course, long before I got here, Highland Village, when it started, it's at Lake Louisville. There were a lot of weekend lake homes here. In fact, it's kind of one of the reasons the name Highland Village became that. A lot of people that lived in Highland Park had lake homes around here, so they wanted Highland in the name. Nonetheless, we're right next to Interstate 35. We have FM 407 and FM 2499 as our boundaries. So with that, even though you want to be this nice, quaint lakeside community, you have those things as well. The good thing is the leadership way back when embraced that. I say embraced it. Some of them probably embraced it reluctantly. But when it came time for looking at having some type of a retail base to be able to diversify the tax base, they did a good job planning for that. In fact, I know there was a big battle when a Walmart came here. Friends were lost because of that. When 2499 was going to be punched through all the way to I-35 and to Denton, there were fights over that, but it happened. And that did give us a certain amount of a retail tax base and an interconnection with other cities. We border Louisville, Flower Mound. We do a lot of things together with them. We depend on them. So I think we've been fortunate in that respect that Highland Village is able to keep that lakeside community feel, but also embrace suburbanism, for lack of a better word, and to have some revenue stability because of that. So again, back to my earlier comments, though the challenge is now we're built out. How do we continue that and make it sustain itself?
I find I don't know what a town is versus a city, but I've heard in every city I've worked for, we love our rural character. So my version of rural character is somewhat bitter, being oldest son on a farm. It smells like, putting up silage and cows. I think the DFW version of rural character is something like, I'm not going to pick on anyone here, but maybe Flower Mound. You got your $50,000 horse in your front yard and you country, so I find that funny. The only thing I could add that, Saginaw is relatively small, surrounded by Fort Worth, but infrastructure is just freakishly expensive. So like we've got a bond election in May, 2 street projects, an animal shelter, and some park improvements. The 2 street projects are almost $40 million, and they serve a big industrial core. And then we have people out on Facebook land saying, well, the feed mills need to pay for this. Well, they're going to pay for part of it if voters approve through the tax rate. And so again, it's education, and things are expensive. All the acronyms confuse and annoy people, and everybody's got a brother-in-law or a sister-in-law or a cousin that can do something for a whole lot cheaper. They just don't have a bid on projects. So that's my soapbox.
Great. Well, just since we are ending more towards the end of this luncheon, one thing that we are all very curious is what part of this job cannot be taught in our textbooks or in our school, just in general?
I guess I'll start. I'll say most of it. I say that somewhat jokingly, I guess. Really the important thing, of course, is with all of you students going through and getting your master's degree, you're getting a basis of understanding of local government, what it's about. But so often it does come down to the soft skills, being able to communicate, being able to lead, being able to truly explain those difficult situations. In fact, I got an email a while back where a lady just said, "This makes no sense. I don't understand it." And when I responded to her, I started, you know what? I understand that this doesn't make sense, but let me explain to you why. There are a lot of things we do that seemingly don't make sense, like traffic control plans and disrupting commuters. But it's working through those kind of things and being able to have the delicate touch to be able to get that word across. And you've got to be opening to listening. And, so often somebody may start out angry. You have to understand maybe where the anger is coming from. Let them vent a little bit, and then see if you can explain it and get to a good place. So I would say all those soft skills are extremely important.
Yeah, I think for me, it's I went to UNT as well, and so I looked at my time in graduate school, 25 years ago now, as graduate school is great, but it was more of that history lesson, that foundational aspect of the profession, but as mentioned by Paul, it is the soft skills. It is really, honestly, it's just working through experiences. Uh, I've been a city manager now 5.5 years. I've been an assistant or deputy manager prior to that for about 15 years. So, but what I did is again, this is just what Mario did. What I did is I was able to learn from people that I admire, that I've worked for a number of years, and just see how they handled situations, because I could have handled them very differently. And in fact, after the event was over, I would say I would have handled it that way, a complete. But it's always easy to look backwards, right? But when you're in the moment and you have to lead and you have to make a decision with very little information, sometimes there is no playbook. And what I like about the role that I play is, granted, I'm the city manager, town manager, chief executive, but I'm surrounded by really smart people, a lot smarter than me. I'll never be a fire chief. I'll never be a police chief. I'll never be a CPA, but I'm surrounded by those. And so ultimately I have to make the call, not always, but sometimes I have to make the call, but I rely on that input. And so I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I'm the one that's willing to take on the responsibility. If things go bad, hey, I'm in charge. I'm the one that's responsible for those situations. If things go fantastic, then that praise and that kudos, that praise goes to the staff that executed what needed to happen in the moment. And so I'm not saying you can't learn that through graduate school. You can learn that through projects, being the lead on things, also learning how to delegate responsibilities, and sometimes just taking a step back and let others take charge and you be the listener. So you can learn that in graduate school, but it's not necessarily out of a textbook.
I think, especially if you're going to work at an extremely small city, like I do, a key skill that you're probably not going to learn before you're on the spot is just how to fail and fail gracefully and recover from failure. An analogy that I like to use, I like to say it all the time, that I'm sweeping water and trying to get it all flowing in the same direction, but it's making a mess. And it takes a level of confidence to come in and put on the face and say, hey, we're building momentum and making corrections where needed. And it says there are problems with the network. See, just like this, failing gracefully forward. And even though the job is 24/7, and even though it's a heavy responsibility and all the things that we've been discussing, how to accept your own imperfection and build a narrative that allows you to continue moving forward. So.
A few things. Probably you're a student, and the last thing when you finish you want to do is to read. But reading has really changed my life, and I find that when I can read things that I want to, relatively recently, I've read fiction where normally I kind of like history and biographies and that sort of thing. But I find that books that have some staying power or are popular or well known, there's some truth there, or there's something. So I read this, kind of a bad example, but I read Crime and Punishment. It's a big long book by Dostoevsky. It's about someone who murdered a couple people. Let's not murder, but it was about all the thoughts in this person's head, and that was really interesting to me. And I think it's helpful to understand or think about the motivations and the thoughts of the people that you work with, as well as the mayor and council. What are their motivations? Why are they seeing things? Or, because ultimately we want to have some path forward, and we're here for the same reason, and that is to do a good thing for the community. It shouldn't be an adversarial and confrontational type thing. So I've found reading to be really helpful, and also a hobby that I enjoy. One thing too, that one single person on a council, or even in your coworkers, when they change or move on, it can change the dynamic drastically. I've had elections, and our other panelists have gone through more elections than I have, but one person changes the whole, personality of the council. It's crazy to me, but it happens, and you have to roll with the punches. That's part of the job, and it makes life interesting.
My son just finished Crime and Punishment, and he dove into the brothers Karamazov. So yeah, he's a
It's the perfect novel. After he finishes it,
he likes it. I would say council relations is and everything everybody else said is absolutely spot on. But I don't know if you can have a course on that. It's more of an art than it is a class, and it's so many different personalities. And like Gabe said, if you change one of the components, one of the 7 or 8 or 5, it changes everything. And how do they want to communicate? What are their hot button issues? How do they relate to the other council members? So complex, and can change on a dime. I've got council members that don't really understand their job. I had one that said, I'm not fulfilling the charter. I need to be in on these traffic discussions with your staff, because that's what I was voted to do. And he wasn't voted to do that. He was voted to set policy. So it's that's something that you just kind of hard knocks, failure, and coming back from that. But I would say that's something, and I don't know if there's a course for it. I think it just end up being a bunch of war stories.
No, well, thank you all for that. This time, I'd love to open it up towards the audience so they can ask any questions they're curious about, anything they want to ask. Just the floor is y'all.
So I'll kick us off. What is one action that you've taken that came almost secondhand nature to you because of what you do, but ended up making a positive impact in someone's life and you didn't realize it?
I got a great one. Chance came to me and he said, I want to be a city manager. And I said, let me check your temperature, your pupils, and see if you're coherent. But I said, if you really want to, go to a small town, and you'll learn a lot, and you'll learn it quick because you'll be the only person there for the most part. And that's what he did. And that's what I tell all my staff. I've got a finance director that'd like to be a manager someday. And again, I checked, make sure he had a concussion or anything. But sometimes those little conversations, you never know when they end up. And then chances, just cold calling Robert Hanna, just little things like that, little conversations. You never know how they'll turn out.
So yes, David, you can go.
Yeah, hi. From what I can tell, I have a lot of fellow students that think a good bit like me, but maybe aren't exactly in the same situation. So I'll just say exactly kind of how I'm thinking about my MPA transition and the whole career. I want to make a difference. I want to serve the public. I think that this career might be good for me, but I'm not really ambitious personally, and I don't want to be moving my family around from city to city. So I'd like to get into a small town that I can grow with instead of moving all over the Metroplex to gain experience that way. So I really like the idea of working for a city like y'all are. What are cities like yours looking for from the MPA graduates as far as interviewing preparations, as far as practical experience, theoretical something or other? What do we need to know in order to get our feet in the door that way?
I think that I actually have very strong feelings about this topic.
Okay, great.
So I think that the future of the expansion of our profession of city management is in these very small cities. The state comptroller counts about 1,245 incorporated municipalities in Texas. Of those, about 60 to 65% are 5,000 people or fewer. And so the vast majority of cities in Texas are not Austin, Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. If you want to get into a very small city that you can grow with for decades, you're not selling them on you. You're selling them on the concept of city management, of professional management. And so you have to represent the entire institution. Don't let that scare you, because these people need help so desperately and don't realize it. And you can offer an incredible amount of value without any experience whatsoever. For example, when I went to Paradise, the questions were, what's a fund? What's an employee handbook? How often do we need to do the audit? When can we change a budget? How does voting work? And because they didn't know the answers to those questions, the people didn't trust them. And so local government, democracy was harmed as a result of that failure. So if you can come in and demonstrate worth that way, they will realize how badly they need you. And then you're golden. And there's danger in that too, being too golden. But I will just say for the group, I would be happy to talk with anybody who wants to work in a very small city, because they are all around us and they're neglected.
Sure.
Spencer, you can share my contact information with anybody who wants to talk about that. Gentlemen, my battery's about to die. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. I'm saying farewell.
Thank you for your time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. So is there any other student that would like to ask a question? And as we wrap everything up.
Hello everyone. I'm from South Korea, and where I work for Seoul Metropolitan Government. This spring semester is my final semester. So I really appreciate to share your experience. I'm really pleased to hear Dr. Bland, because I run from Dr. Bland. So I just to say thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And congratulations on finishing.
Thank you.
Best wishes. Congratulations.
Kamsahamnida.
I also my friends Diksha work your city.
Yeah, Diksha.
So nice. Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, so I really nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to
Thank
meet you. One thing, and well, these guys could share, but I think if you're starting out in your career or you have an internship, you need to be the type of person that's willing to do anything. Just step in there and get it done. And whatever your end goal is, you're going to get there. It may not be immediately. I feel like I should have memorized maybe Mario's biography by now, but I remember maybe he came to a class one time. You might not remember this, but I think he was a fleet analyst in Carrollton. And he said something like, hey, I knew I wasn't going to do this forever, but it was a good gig and it was paying the bills. That's the attitude you have to take. And I think that good people that have the right intentions, they're going to find the right situation. We had an intern. I love the dude. We didn't have a full-time spot for him, and he was able to make his way to Northlake. Hopefully, David is still gainfully employed. Is he, Drew?
Yes, he is.
Oh, thank God. Okay, so that's worked out.
Bad example.
Yeah, I was a little worried. He also happened to be an Aggie. I'm not an Aggie. Drew's an Aggie, but I know. I remember when I was a student, I was kind of concerned about, what's going to be my first job and my next job. You got to play the cards that are dealt, and hope for the best.
Hey, David. One thing I would say, and I'm hearing it. Is I definitely would go into saying you're not an ambitious person. That's probably kind of one of those words that don't bode well for an interview process. But I think from a standpoint of being ambitious, or maybe that you don't necessarily want to move from town to town or city to city, you want to just kind of stay put. That's fine. We need people like that, and grow with the community organization. But to Gabe's point, it's more about, hey, I'm willing to do just about anything. And sometimes taking on that that entry-level position morphs into different things, or people are out. And so it's a small community. And again, as mentioned before by Chance and others, sometimes you have to wear multiple hats. And so if a person's out, step in, not expecting compensation or additional accolades. Just step in and knowing all of a sudden, hey, this David guy, he's actually pretty good at this role. And so he's proved to be valuable. We need to hang on to him and expand his responsibilities because he stepped in when we needed him the most, you know. So it's just taking those opportunities, as Gabe said, and run with it. And again, I was a fleet analyst. I knew I wasn't going to be there forever, but I was making zero, and I went from zero to making a salary, and that's what I needed. I needed my foot in the door, and that afforded me the opportunity to work with my employer to do a tuition reimbursement, which got me into graduate school, which led me to North Texas, which led me to, you know, again, it's the beginnings of a career. And so that's the position I would take is we need people to stay put in small organizations. Nothing wrong with that, but when you have the opportunity, take it, and don't expect there to be any additional reward for it outside of a pat on the back and a thank you, and hopefully more opportunities in the future.
Thanks, Mario. That's awesome.
Yeah, we're public servants, and so and we're drawn to this field because we want to serve others. So our personalities aren't lions of industry and type A personalities. We're forced in that, but we come at it from a servant heart. So it is a bit of a dichotomy, a balance there between those two forces. I think study that community. I mean, the people they're interviewing a lot of times are the council, and they love that community. They've given up their time, their volunteering time. And you go in there and say, well, I scanned your website, and I drove, know it backwards and forwards, and you may not get the job, but you're going to show how committed to that. And then a lot of times it's just that little town has a need, their budget's a mess, or maybe their police department needs help, or maybe they need a capital program, or maybe their finances are, and they need some help in the back office. They just need to get the utility billing out. You're going to have that skill set, or you're going to grow it pretty quickly to handle that immediate need. And then, if you have the luxury or the ability, you'll grow into the rest of it. But it's about you're helping them. They're paying you to do a job, and usually they're going to be in some kind of crisis, like Chance said, and they may be in a crisis on all fronts.
Yeah, I think it kind of fits along with all those comments. What I've always told people first starting out, become an expert in something. I think that really falls in line with willingness to take on a task. If you take on that task, get to understand everything about it and know it. I know when I was in Burleson starting out, we didn't have a tax abatement policy. So I was assigned to write the tax abatement policy. And, that was exciting to be able to do that for the first time, to do the research, to talk to city managers in the area, what their tax abatement policy was about. Really just embrace those opportunities and make something of it. And I think as Drew's saying, in a small town, I was in Ovilla, which was a city of about 3,000 at the time. You get to do a lot of things, and you learn a lot, and you learn a lot and you give back at the same time. I learned more about septic systems, sewer systems, dog catching, you name it. And it's invaluable to be able to do that.
Would anyone like to make a last question real quick? If not, then from me at least, thank you to the panelists for sharing your experiences, the perspectives. It was very insightful, and I had a great hour. To everyone here, I hope the conversation showed local governance within our smaller communities, or smaller or bigger towns, smaller cities within the DFW region. And I just want to say thank you from me, and I'll pass it back to our president, Spencer, so we can finish it off.
Thank you, Carlos. Like he said, thank you to our panelists that were here today for taking time out of your busy schedules to come talk to us and impart your knowledge. Quite a lot was learned in this past hour that I didn't even know, and I've been around this place for quite a while. For those that know people that were perhaps not able to attend, I have been recording this session and will be releasing it here in a little bit so that they can still learn what everybody else learned here today. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We will be having another one of these a little bit later in the semester, late March is what we're looking at right now. So keep your eyes on the horizon for that. We also have the MPA Alumni Conference in April. For those of you, because I just put up the sign up for that. So if you don't know how to do that, go talk to Jessica Woods. She's great on that. And that's pretty much it. I hope you guys have a good rest of y'all's day.
Thank you.